G'day my friends, Marty We're here from Marty's Garden. Look, I've got another viewer question from Didgeridoo Vibes asking about chicken manure and worm farming. And I thought, you know what, this is a really good question and I know a lot of people would want to know this. So we're going to fire away and get another one done for the community. Here's the question. As I said, from Didgeridoo Vibes, thank you so much for sending the question through. I've read that chicken manure isn't that great for worms because of the high ammonia content. Now, what I want to do is sort of break it down a bit more and go a bit further about just the ammonia content, right? Because chicken manure is probably one of the hardest ones to work with, but I believe from my experience over the years of micro farming and growing microgreens and selling food to restaurants and things like that, the chicken manure that I had at home was the bomb. It was my secret fertilizer that I grew at home. Well, not grew at home. Well, I grew the chickens, and then the chickens ate the food all around, sort of free range, and turned into manure. And man, I tell you what, I wish I had photos. But if you go right back to some of the old microgreens videos that I've got here on my channel, you'll see just how big these things grew. They were ginormous. So anyway, let's get into it. I've got my list here, so you see me while I'm probably looking down. So the first thing I've got is, do you get it first or do you put it in fresh? So do you age it first, he said, or do you put it in fresh? Right, so it's a good idea if you do age it. You need to let it get dry and crispy and sort of, put it in big clunks and sort of break it up. You can get it around the bottom of your chicken farm, where they're sort of like sitting overnight, roosting overnight. They always drop a lot of droppings down there. You can get the aged stuff down there. You can get it out and put it in the sun. Can get a bit smelly, chicken manure, so be careful. And it has a super high nitrogen content and an array of minerals. So if you're feeding your chickens really well, the manure is going to be even more potent. And eventually, once it becomes a worm casting, right, it doesn't burn the plants. And all that minerals, all those minerals and great stuff that's in that chicken manure, because chicken manure is one of the best fertilizers out there, but the problem is it burns everything. It's just so high in nitrogen, kills seedlings and kills plants if you just use too much of it. But if you turn to a worm casting, it does exactly the opposite. It becomes pH neutral, super nutrient dense, and can just make plants just grow like no tomorrow. So if you want to grow giant plants, that is the way to go, I believe. But I don't have any chickens here anymore, so I can't keep running the experiment. But it's something that I'm really super passionate about. So let's get into the next part. Nutrition, right? So it really depends on what you're feeding them. If you're getting just feeding them crappy grains and all that, you're going to end up with an okay worm casting, an okay manure, but it's not going to be absolutely great. So the next part is the ammonia, right? Which Didgeridoo Vibes asked about. Well, it does give off a lot of ammonia, and when it's really sort of like fresh, it's going to give off more. Even when it's aged, it does give off ammonia, right? Because you start breaking it down, it starts going into that composting process and it gives it off. So if you're putting it in the worm farm, you just don't want to put too much of it, just a small amount. About a handful sort of flattened out across the surface area is really good, and make sure there's lots of holes in your worm farm, right? Because I've killed worms with too much ammonia in my farms, and it's really sad, it's really smelly, and it's not a nice, pleasant sight, that's for sure. Right, so the next part is I'm talking about here, the worm tea. So when you're adding it to your worm farms and it starts breaking down, you're putting water into your worm farms at the right time of year when it's not too hot, you're not sucking away all the oxygen out of your farm, and then you're getting it as worm tea. It grows amazing plants. And the casting that you get, if you're going to make a worm tea from the casting, is, in my experience, even better. So to break it all down for you, don't use too much of it. Use the best quality chicken manure you can get. I would stay away from pellets. It can have lead and iron. Not iron, iron's okay, but it can have lead and different things in it, different nasties that we don't know about. It's not regulated anyway. So if you can get it from your friends or from a local chicken farm, something like that, or you just, you've got a homestead or some backyard chickens, then it's the way to go. But use less first and then build it up slowly over time. You'll get used to it. The worms will get used to eating it. Your farm will sort of grow the right biology for it. And boom, you've got amazing worm castings. All right, have a great day. Happy worm farming. If you're digging the questions, leave them for me down below and I will answer as many as I can, my friends. Have a great day. Bye for now.